The importance of unhappiness. That's going to be the topic of this episode of Chi Life. So this topic was inspired by a conversation I had with someone recently, and we were talking generally about how things are going in our lives. And as part of that, we did talk about happiness and also unhappiness, not just in the context of specifically what was going on within our lives, but more generally, the role that these play within our lives. Now, naturally, most of us have a tendency to seek out being happy as much as we possibly can. And that's a good thing. Generally speaking, hopefully, things that make us happy are things that are actually good for us. So it's good for us to seek that out. The flip side of this as well, though, is something that I think sometimes we can lose sight of, is that unhappiness also plays a valuable role in our lives. Because again, hopefully if we have a healthy perspective on life, the things that make us unhappy will be things that are actually not good for us. And so in experiencing unhappiness, that can help to steer us and guide us away from things that might be, unhealthy or even harmful to us. We can think of this as the same way that we might think of other maybe physical stimulus that we experience. Very simple one being pleasure and pain. Again, hopefully, if we're a healthy, balanced person, the things that bring us pleasure, naturally wired into our system, are things that are good for us. And things that bring us pain, again, if we're healthy and balanced, relatively speaking, would be things that are bad for us. And so it's really good for us to have both of these responses to stimulus that we experience within our lives. It's good for us to move towards pleasure, towards things that are good for us. And it's good also for us to move away from pain. If we didn't move away from pain, this could lead to injury or worse injury. Like we might already have a little injury from the pain, but much worse injury from not moving away from it, or possibly, illness or, things like that. And so these two sides to that equation, pleasure and pain, each play a valuable role. Now, unhappiness and happiness are a bit broader concepts. And so you'll notice as I've talked about this, I've said, assuming you're relatively balanced and healthy, that this can help to steer us, because sometimes we can get a little bit mixed up in our response to different things. And, it's entirely possible for us to feel unhappy about something that's actually really good for us, or happy about something that's not good or healthy for us. So for this to work effectively, it does require a degree of self-knowledge, which is a really good, beautiful thing, really valuable thing in our lives. And also for us to find a way to have an equilibrium in the first place so that this system of feedback can work well for us, so that we are actually oriented towards healthy things making us happy and unhealthy things being the things that make us unhappy. When we are oriented in that way, it's actually a really, really good thing for us to experience unhappiness from time to time, because that's going to help guide us in our lives to move away from things that might otherwise be harmful to us. Now, it might not be exactly the same or as obvious as things that cause us pain. Like it might not be, the stove is too hot, better move away from that. It might be a little bit more abstract in many ways than that. But the things that then make us unhappy can be, things like not being treated well, not being in a physical environment that supports our health and well-being, maybe having become stuck and stagnant in a situation or a pattern of behavior or habits that aren't supporting us in learning and growing and developing and reaching our true potential. All of those things can make us unhappy. And the experiencing of that unhappiness is a good thing. And I think when we can recognize that, hey, actually, it's good that I'm unhappy, we can then respond to it in a more productive, more valuable way. Because when we recognize the value of that unhappiness, it can then act more effectively to motivate us towards doing those things that will be healthier, better, more productive for us in our lives. I think sometimes we can have a tendency to just think, that being unhappy doesn't matter, or it's just how it is and you just have to accept it. And then we miss the value that can come from that unhappiness. Now, it's true that how we respond to that unhappiness might be different, different ways that we respond to it in order to bring us to a situation that's better for us. Because sometimes what we need to do to move away from unhappiness and towards happiness is that we need to change our environment. We change our situation. We need to get out of where we are. We need to change what we're doing, right? And so that kind of action is quite obvious in terms of like, how do I change this unhappiness? Move, change what I'm doing. Other times, what we need to do to change our unhappiness is actually internal within us. It's not the same as just accepting the unhappiness, but it's recognizing, hey, actually, the solution to this unhappiness, to creating something healthy for me, is not necessarily in changing what I'm doing or the environment I'm in, but changing my perspective internally. Because it may be that what is causing us to be unhappy is not necessarily what's in our environment or what we're doing, but rather it's how we are sending our focus and our energy. And so sometimes it's, okay, what needs to change is within me. I need to change my focus, change where I'm sending my energy, put more energy towards some different parts or aspects of my life. And that's what's going to move me away from the happiness and towards greater happiness. So it's quite a lot more nuanced. Compared to pleasure and pain, this working with happiness and unhappiness. But it's an important thing in our lives. If we never experienced unhappiness, we would probably tend to have a tendency to remain in situations that really aren't good for us for much longer than is healthy for us. And when we recognize that unhealthiness, we can act on it, whether that be changing things externally within our environment around us, changing what we're doing, or changing our internal perspective. So anyway, I hope maybe there's something useful in that for someone watching this video, maybe to give you some ways of thinking about what you're experiencing in your own life, and maybe how you can, have a different perspective on it, and so that you can use that unhappiness in a valuable way for you. Now, as I've mentioned a couple of times, in order for our calibration of unhappiness and happiness to work effectively, to steer us in the right direction, we need to have some kind of balance, some kind of equilibrium in the first place, so that we calibrate correctly and we're not, seeking out unhealthy things to make us happy. That we need to find that equilibrium first. And Qigong, of course, is a great tool for helping us to find that equilibrium, for helping us to bring clarity to our mind, to become centered within our body, and to really have a deeper, truer sense of ourselves, so that we can then steer ourselves through our lives more effectively. And so, there'll be some links in the description to the Long White Cloud Qigong website and things like that if you'd like to find out a bit more about Qigong and how it might help you to find that equilibrium in the first place. All right, I look forward to seeing you on another vlog soon.